Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Real Estate Unleashed. I am your co-host, Bridget Quinn. You can find me on social media, B. Quinn Realtor.
And I'm Reiggin Hildebrand with the Home Team Realty Group. You can find me on social media at Realtor Reiggin.
Howdy.
Howdy, Bridget. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so we're here for another episode, and you and I were talking off camera and kind of clicked with us. Yeah. Here in Concord, where we film in the great state of North Carolina, they actually filmed another, not as good as our podcast, but another hit.
Second to best.
Second to best.
Yes.
The movie Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. And a lot of our favorite little locations were used as some of the exteriors.
Downtown Concord was used a lot in that movie.
And that got you and I thinking, we sometimes need divine intervention.
Divine intervention at its finest. We call upon the gods.
Call upon the gods of real estate.
This was totally by accident, by the way.
To intervene and to deliver our own miracles. Real
estate is a miracle at all times. That it's, you just need something.
I had one of my favorite set of clients. They told me that they couldn't do what I do because the stress would just eat their stomach alive, like ulcers and everything. And I agree with that sometimes.
We do eat a lot of Tums or Pepto.
We take antacids and other liquids to cure what ails us.
Yes.
But sometimes, we need an actual sign from God above or some intervention of the Holy Finger coming down to touch our deal. Just touch this contract for me right here. Make it work.
If only that was that easy.
If only. But, and I think that was what we kind of spurred our thoughts here was, sometimes you think this deal is doomed.
Right.
There is no way that it's going to...
No way in Hades that it's going to survive this.
Yeah.
And sometimes they fall apart, but at least in my case too, anything that's fallen apart actually has turned out so much better.
Right.
For the next part.
Yeah. Either the clients have that epiphany of, well, this wasn't the right house to begin with. We jumped too soon. Now we're on to bigger and better things.
A better contract the second go around.
Yeah. And I've had clients too that had to pause everything because it wasn't even a house deal. It was a finance deal. And they're set back maybe 6 months. But then when they regroup those 6 months later, they're in a position to buy a better or more house.
Right.
Things improved better than they assumed they could. So, there are those situations. And I know you were mentioning a story that I want you to tell about a house that had some repair issues.
Yeah, so I guess that's the long story short on this one. So, this one required, the sellers had decided that the whole house was just going to be basically as is, which in North Carolina, it's a as is contract. But they didn't want to make any sort of repairs. They didn't want to do anything. They cleaned and all of that sort of stuff, but they didn't want to put a lot of time and effort into the house sale itself, which I understand. They were kind of scrapped to get into something new right after that. So for me, I think what helped them out was the timing of it, because this was at the start of COVID and everything there. So plus we didn't know what COVID was going to do to sales, right? It was just kind of crazy, but, got the perfect buyers for it, which was nice. They were first time. And, the agent that was on the other side, went above and beyond. She had a handyman come out and fix a few things that were known issues before they even really did anything. And then even on the inspection report, it came back, which kind of surprised me. I didn't really realize that the crawl space was in such bad condition as it was. But got through it. Negotiating, my clients were very fair, and those buyers were eager to get into the house. So all things worked out, but that one was a tough one with as many kind of small issues that rose up in the inspection report, which is why you always need to get an inspection report.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Even the hand of God can't fix things that aren't discovered, right?
right. I mean, if that couple during COVID, like so many people were doing is they were bypassing all of these inspections or just like, I'll take it because it's what I can get. They would have found a whole lot of issues.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I think if it was any other buyer or if it was done now to where the market's a little bit more stable, not quite as crazy, like it could have had totally different turnout.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a thing like the divine timing of things.
Yes,
is
like
there
everything
too.
just worked out so perfect for the sellers, and they took a little bit of break and then found them their perfect home. Everything just fell into place there. So that one was definitely some divine intervention and good vibes and stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, and along those same lines, like the one that always comes to mind for me when you talk about that divine miracle of how do we even get to closing?
Right.
Like OMG, like the one. And you and I have had this discussion about this property before. I won't get into specifics to protect the innocent, not the guilty, the innocent. But this was a home that was purchased. Gosh, I think it was before all the COVID madness. I think
it was right before, was it not?
Right, it was. It was before everything went off the rails with the market and inventory dropping. But yeah, because it was a property that had been on the market for a little while. My buyers found it and they liked it. It had a lot of potential to it. The issue was it sat on the market for a while because it was investor owned, and the investor hadn't done any kind of due diligence on this property. So, we talk about North Carolina property disclosures. Sellers can check no representation on the disclosures, which just essentially means I don't know if there's anything wrong, and if I do know there's anything wrong, I'm not saying anything. I don't want to put myself in a position where I could be liable for a defect.
Right.
So investors a lot of times will check all no representation boxes.
Or they also do no representation because they haven't owned it that long.
Yeah, they may not even set foot in the property themselves. So for whatever reason, this one was a completely undiscovered territory type of thing. Star Trek nerd, undiscovered country. It was in the country. And it was, so my clients went in a little blind, but they knew that it was a modular home. Modular homes are different from what we consider like manufactured double wide or single wides, because they're manufactured, but they're assembled on site. It's just the pieces are manufactured in a factory.
Controlled environment.
Yeah, controlled environment. You get a very sturdy house, but long story short, there are two different types of modulars. There's an on frame and an off frame.
What's the difference?
An on-frame modular, I think we talked a little bit about this in the financing 101 stuff, but an on-frame modular still has steel beams underneath it. It was rolled in on those. There were brought in on those, not rolled in, because a rolled in would make it a roll out, rolled in. Anyhow, it has a steel frame girder underneath it that essentially is the foundation of the house. Whereas an off-frame, no, it's got a traditional foundation, piers, footings, all that stuff. Anyway,
and some of those you can't even tell.
You can't tell, like from the exterior. So we didn't know what kind of modular it was. There was no representation from the sellers. Financing had already been an issue for these clients. And they were now working with a much better lender the second time around, and they were going FHA, which is a little peculiar about things.
Yep.
Anyhow, without knowing any of this stuff, we charged forward blindly into this whole mess. Again, fingers crossed, hands praying the whole time that we just get through it.
Right.
Inspection report comes in and it shows it is an on-frame modular, which can cause hiccups. My clients were fine with it. It didn't bother them.
Right.
Can cause hiccups in the appraisal process.
Yeah.
Thank God the appraisal comes back like a day or two later, doesn't say anything about whether or not it's on frame, off frame, doesn't even say if it's modular.
No conditions or nothing.
Nothing. It is a clean appraisal. That was a miracle. Because the thing that you find out, the real gods of real estate sometimes are the appraisers.
Oh, sure.
They have so much power.
So much control and power. I mean,
yeah.
They can really squash a deal.
Yeah, they can be the Hercules.
Hercules.
Of real estate, and they wield a lot of power. But again, we got through it, and like at the end, like I was afraid to say anything all the way to the closing table.
Oh, sure. You didn't want to jinx yourself.
Jinxing. Yeah, like we get superstitious in real estate.
We do.
Weirdly so.
Weirdly so.
Right, and like holding breath, waiting for the deed to record before I say to the buyers.
You never count yourself out until, as you say, that's a complete done deal.
Deed is recorded, everything's been funded. Then I pass the keys over to these happy buyers, and I'll be like, just go home, light a candle, do whatever, because it was the real estate gods that got you to this point. There was nothing it was out of my control.
Sure.
Like, that's the thing, like as agents, we talk a lot about how much control do we have.
Well, sure. It's like in my instance, I mean, like the good thing with my deal is, again, it was never a bad deal or anything. It just had a lot of, things that needed to be taken care of. But that's where we had a lot of control, because as agent, and speaking to the other good agent in that one, is you work together as a team and you make things happen. Mm-hmm. Mine was more the perfect timing, the perfect agent, the right couple for, my people. Like everything aligned. The stars literally aligned for that.
Yeah.
Versus more so of like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good feeling. Like when you go in and like everything's just working out as you go. The bad feeling ones are the ones where you're on pins and needles the whole way through, wondering if you're going to get a miracle at the end. As you say,
is you're throwing that curveball.
Yeah. So we do a lot of pray. Excuse me. We do a lot of praying before, during, and thankful prayers afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's the big takeaway from all this. Like we could tell other stories,
for sure.
and on all ends, like our people we work with, the loan officers, inspectors, our closing attorneys and paralegals, they all have stories about where didn't know that was going to happen.
Right. I mean, there's been plenty of times where things have you think the worst, and things happen, and maybe the deal does fall apart. It's happened for me. I know it's happened for you. And then when you go back on market, my sellers on one instance got a higher price, way better contract than the first one they received. Yeah. So all things work out as they should.
Exactly. No matter what you believe as far as higher powers, or what kind of gems or stones you need, or whatever kind of statues you need to plant outside, upside down.
St. Joseph's. We can take you to the Enchanted Kitchen in downtown Concord.
Yep. There's either way you do it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get a miracle. But you know what I'm praying for right now? Seg into click the subscribe button. Yeah.
Show us those good vibes.
Yeah, that sends us a miracle. Answers our prayers when you click that subscribe button for us.
Do our little happy dance.
Happy dance. If you're already subscribed, hit the like button for us. Helps the channel out a ton. And we couldn't do it without you. But as always, you can find me on social media at Realtor Reiggin.
And you can catch me on social media, B. Quinn Realtor. And we will see you next time.